How to make loans work for you to build wealth. Introduction. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about something that might sound completely backwards at first: how to use debt to build wealth. Now I know what you're thinking. Debt? Isn't debt the thing that keeps people broke? And you're not wrong to think that way. Most of us have been taught that all debt is bad, that we should avoid it at all costs, and that the path to wealth is staying completely debt-free. But here's the truth that wealthy people have known for generations. Not all debt is created equal. There's debt that destroys wealth, and there's debt that builds it. And understanding the difference between these two types of debt might be one of the most important financial lessons you'll ever learn. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how loans can become powerful tools in your wealth-building arsenal. We'll cover everything from mortgages to business loans, from investment property financing to strategic use of credit. And most importantly, I'll show you the red flags you need to watch out for, because yes, there are absolutely ways that loans can destroy your financial future. By the end of this video, you'll understand how to think about debt like an investor, not like a consumer. So let's dive in. Part 1. The fundamental concept: good debt versus bad debt. Let's start with the basics. What makes some debt good and other debt bad? Bad debt is money you borrow to buy things that lose value over time or don't generate any income. Think about it like this. If you finance a brand new car at 7% interest, that car starts losing value the moment you drive it off the lot. You're paying interest on something that's worth less every single month. That's bad debt. Credit card debt for clothes, vacations, or restaurant meals, bad debt. You're paying 18-25% interest on things that gave you temporary pleasure but provide zero financial return. Good debt, on the other hand, is money you borrow to acquire assets that either appreciate in value, generate income, or both. This is debt that works for you, not against you. A mortgage on a rental property that generates monthly cash flow, that's good debt. A business loan that allows you to buy equipment that increases your revenue, good debt. Student loans for a degree that significantly increases your earning potential? That can be good debt if done strategically. Here's the key principle. Good debt puts money in your pocket. Bad debt takes money out. But there's another crucial element to good debt, and this is where a lot of people mess up. Good debt also has to be at a reasonable interest rate with terms you can actually afford. A loan for an investment property is only good debt if the numbers make sense. If you overextend yourself, even good debt can destroy you financially. Let me give you a simple framework. Before taking on any debt, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. Will this asset generate income or appreciate in value? 2. Is the expected return higher than the interest rate I'm paying? 3. Can I comfortably afford the payments even if things don't go exactly as planned? If you can't answer yes to all 3, you need to seriously reconsider that loan. Part 2. Mortgages, your first wealth-building tool. Let's talk about the most common form of good debt, mortgages. And I'm going to cover 2 different strategies here, because there's mortgages for your primary residence, and then there's mortgages for investment properties, your primary residence. First, your own home. Now, there's debate about whether your primary residence is truly an investment. Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, argues it's not because it doesn't put money in your pocket, and he has a point. But I'm going to respectfully disagree partially, and here's why. When you rent, you're paying someone else's mortgage. That money is gone forever. When you own, you're building equity. Yes, you have maintenance costs and property taxes that renters don't directly pay, but you're also building wealth in 3 ways. First, forced savings. Every mortgage payment includes principal repayment. That's money going into an asset you own, not disappearing into a landlord's pocket. Second, appreciation. Real estate historically appreciates at about 3-5% annually on average. Some years more, some less, but over time, property values tend to rise. Third, leverage. This is the big one. Let's say you buy a $300,000 house with a $60,000 down payment. You're controlling a $300,000 asset with just $60,000 of your own money. If that house appreciates 5% in 1 year, it's worth $15,000. You made $15,000 on a $60,000 investment. That's a 25% return on your actual money invested. That's the power of leverage. The loan is working for you, but here are the warnings. Don't buy more house than you can afford. The old rule was to keep your housing costs below 28% of your gross income, and that's still pretty solid advice. Don't get an adjustable rate mortgage unless you really understand the risks. And remember, a house is only as good an investment as the price you pay for it. Overpaying in a hot market can wipe out years of potential gains. Investment properties. Now let's talk about the real wealth builder, investment properties. This is where mortgages become seriously powerful tools. Here's a real case study. My friend Marcus bought a duplex in 2019 for $280,000. He put down $56,000, which was 20%, and financed the rest at 4.5% interest. His mortgage payment, including property taxes and insurance, was about $450 per month. He lives in one unit and rents out the other. The rent from the second unit, $200 per month, so his actual out-of-pocket housing cost is only $250 per month. Meanwhile, his tenant is essentially paying down his mortgage, and he's building equity in a property that's now worth around $350,000. Marcus used leverage to acquire an appreciating asset while minimizing his actual costs. That's the magic of house hacking with a mortgage. But it gets even better with pure investment properties. Let's say you buy a single-family rental for $200,000 with 20% down. You finance $160,000 at 6% interest. Your mortgage payment is around $960 per month. Add in property taxes, insurance, and maintenance reserves, and you're at about $1,400 per month in total costs. If you can rent that property for $1,800 per month, you've got $400 in monthly cash flow. That's $4,800 per year in passive income. But remember, your tenant is also paying down your loan principal. In the first year, roughly $4,000 of your mortgage payments go toward principal. So you're actually gaining about $8,800 in wealth that first year, plus any appreciation. And you're doing this with mostly borrowed money. You're using the bank's money to build your wealth. That's leverage working for you. The warnings here are critical, though. Investment properties require work. You need to screen tenants, handle maintenance, and deal with vacancies. The numbers need to work even with a few months of vacancy per year. And never, ever assume that property values only go up. Have a buffer, keep reserves, and don't overextend yourself. Part 3. Business loans, investing in your income. If mortgages are the most common form of good debt, business loans are potentially the most powerful. This is where you're directly investing in your ability to generate income. There are several types of business loans, and each serves a different purpose. Equipment financing. Let's start with equipment financing. Sarah runs a small landscaping business. She's been renting equipment, which costs her about $2,000 per month. She could buy the same equipment for $60,000, or she could finance it. She gets an equipment loan for $60,000 at 7% interest over 5 years. Her monthly payment is about $1,298. She just cut her monthly equipment costs by over $800, which goes straight to her bottom line. Plus, she owns the equipment after 5 years, and she can depreciate it for tax purposes. Sarah used debt to reduce her ongoing costs and increase her profitability. The loan paid for itself, and then some. Working capital loans. Then there's working capital loans. These help you cover short-term expenses, manage cash flow gaps, or seize opportunities. Let's say you run an online retail business and you find an incredible deal on inventory right before the holiday season. You can buy $50,000 worth of products for $30,000, but you need the cash now. You take a short-term working capital loan for $30,000. You sell that inventory over the next 2 months for the full $50,000. After paying back the loan plus interest, you've still made a significant profit on money you didn't even have. Business expansion loans. Then there's expansion loans. This is where you borrow to grow. Maybe you're opening a second location, launching a new product line, or hiring key staff that will increase revenue. Here's a real example. Tom owned a successful coffee shop doing $400,000 in annual revenue with about $80,000 in profit. He identified a perfect location for a second shop. He took out a $150,000 business loan to cover the build-out and initial operating costs. The second location took about 18 months to become consistently profitable, But once it did, it was generating an additional $60,000 in annual profit. Tom used debt to nearly double his income. Within 5 years, that loan had paid for itself several times over. The warnings. But here's where business loans get dangerous. Unlike a rental property where you have tangible real estate, business loans are often secured by your business assets or even your personal guarantee. If the business fails, you're still on the hook. Never borrow for a business without a clear plan for how that money will generate returns. Have realistic financial projections, understand your break-even point, and most importantly, don't borrow operating expenses when your business isn't profitable. That's just digging a deeper hole. A good business loan should either reduce costs, increase revenue, or both. If you can't clearly articulate how the loan will do one of those things, don't take it. Part 4. Strategic Debt, Advanced Concepts. Now let's talk about some more advanced strategies that wealthy people use. These aren't for everyone, but understanding them will change how you think about debt. Debt arbitrage. This is borrowing at a low rate to invest at a higher rate. Here's a simple example. Let's say you can get a home equity line of credit at 5% interest. You use that to invest in dividend-paying stocks or index funds that historically return 8-10% annually. You're paying 5% to potentially earn 8-10%. The spread is your profit. But this is risky. Investment returns aren't guaranteed, and you could end up paying interest on investments that lose value. This strategy is only for people with a high risk tolerance and the financial cushion to weather market downturns. The HELOC strategy for real estate. Here's a smarter variation. You own a home with significant equity. You take out a home equity line of credit and use it as a down payment on a rental property. The rental property generates enough cash flow to cover its own mortgage and pay back the HELOC. You've essentially used your home equity to acquire a second income-producing property without saving up cash for the down payment. Over time, you pay off the HELOC, and now you own 2 properties instead of 1. This is exactly how many real estate investors scale. They use the equity in one property to acquire the next, creating a snowball effect. Whole life insurance loans. This is controversial, but some people use whole life insurance policies as a banking system. They borrow against the cash value of their policy to make investments or purchases, then pay themselves back with interest. I'm not going to recommend this strategy because it's complex and often sold by people making commissions, but it exists, and some wealthy families use it effectively. The key principle. What all these strategies have in common is this. You're using borrowed money as a tool to acquire assets that generate returns greater than the cost of borrowing. But let me be crystal clear. These are advanced moves. If you're still carrying credit card debt or don't have an emergency fund, these strategies are not for you. Master the basics first. Part 5. Student loans, the complicated case. Let's talk about student loans because this is where the good debt conversation gets complicated. Student loans can absolutely be good debt, but only under specific circumstances. A degree in engineering, nursing, accounting, or computer science that costs $40,000 and leads to a job paying $65,000, that's probably good debt. You're investing in an asset, your earning potential, that will generate returns for decades. But a $100,000 degree in a field with limited job prospects, that's devastating debt. The returns don't justify the cost. Here's what you need to consider with student loans. First, expected salary. Research what people in your field actually earn. Be realistic. Don't assume you'll be the exception. Second, total debt load. A good rule of thumb. Don't borrow more than you expect to earn in your first year. If you'll make $50,000, don't borrow more than $50,000 total. Third, the interest rate. Federal student loans at 4-5% are manageable. Private loans at 8-12%, those can become anchors. Fourth, the opportunity cost. Could you learn the same skills through apprenticeships, certifications, or self-study for less money? Here's a case study. Jennifer borrowed $35,000 to get her nursing degree. She graduated and immediately started earning $62,000. Her loan payments were about $380 per month, which was manageable on her salary. Within 6 years, she'd paid off the loans and she's now earning over $80,000. That loan opened doors and increased her lifetime earning potential by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Compare that to Mike, who borrowed $90,000 for a liberal arts degree with no clear career path. He's working retail, making $32,000, and his loan payments are in forbearance because he can't afford them. The interest is capitalizing, meaning he now owes over $100,000. That debt didn't build wealth, it destroyed his financial future. The difference? Return on investment. Jennifer invested in a high-demand skill with clear earning potential. Mike borrowed for education without considering the economic return. If you're considering student loans, treat it like any other investment. What's the expected return? Is there a cheaper way to achieve the same goal? Can you minimize the debt through scholarships, community college, or working part-time? Part 6. The dark side, predatory lending and traps to avoid. Now we need to talk about the dark side of debt, because not everyone offering you a loan has your best interests in mind. Payday loans. These are financial poison. They're short-term loans with astronomical interest rates, often 300–400% APR. You borrow $500 and end up owing $600 in 2 weeks. Can't pay it back? They'll let you roll it over for another fee. People get trapped in cycles where they're paying hundreds in fees just to borrow a few $100s. Never, ever use payday loans. If you're in a cash emergency, look into community assistance programs, negotiate with your creditors, or sell something. Payday loans will only make your situation worse. Title: Loans, similar trap. You use your car as collateral to borrow money at outrageous rates, can't pay. They take your car. You lose your transportation, which might mean you lose your job, which means you definitely can't pay back the loan. It's a disaster spiral. Subprime auto loans. Car dealerships that advertise buy here, pay here, or bad credit, no problem, are often charging 15–25% interest on used cars priced way above market value. You end up owing $15,000 on a car worth $7,000, and the moment you miss a payment, they repossess it, credit card, minimum payments. This isn't predatory lending exactly, but it's a trap. Credit card companies are legally required to show you this now. If you have a $5,000 balance at 18% interest and only make minimum payments, it will take you over 20 years to pay off and cost you over $6,000 in interest. Credit cards are useful tools for building credit and earning rewards, but carrying a balance at 18–25% interest is wealth destruction. There is no investment that reliably returns 18–25%, so you can never use debt at those rates to build wealth. Adjustable rate mortgages, ARMs, without understanding them. These aren't inherently predatory, but they can destroy you if you don't understand the terms. You get a low teaser rate for a few years, then it adjusts to a much higher rate. Suddenly, your $1,500 mortgage payment becomes $2,300, and you can't afford your home. Only use ARMs if you genuinely understand the terms and have a plan for when the rate adjusts. The red flags. Here are the warning signs of predatory or dangerous loans. Interest rates above 15%. Fees that aren't clearly explained. Pressure to sign immediately. Terms you don't fully understand. Penalties for paying off early. Loans secured by your car or home for non-essential purchases. No credit check as a major selling point. If you see these red flags, walk away. There's almost always a better option, even if it means waiting and saving up cash. Conclusion. Let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. Loans aren't inherently good or bad. They're tools. Like any tool, they can build or destroy depending on how you use them. Good debt has 3 characteristics. It finances appreciating or income-producing assets, has reasonable interest rates and terms, and fits within your budget even if things don't go perfectly. Bad debt finances depreciating assets or consumption, comes with high interest rates, or stretches your budget beyond what you can safely handle. The wealth-building loans we covered: mortgages for primary residences and especially investment properties, business loans that reduce costs or increase revenue, strategic use of leverage to acquire more assets, carefully considered student loans for high-value skills. The traps to avoid: payday loans, title loans, and other predatory lending, high-interest consumer debt, borrowing for depreciating assets, overextending yourself financially, any loan you don't fully understand. Remember the 3 questions before taking on any debt. 1. Will this generate income or appreciate? 2. Is the expected return higher than the interest rate? 3. Can I afford it even if things don't go as planned? Wealthy people understand that money costs money. They're willing to pay interest when it makes financial sense because they understand leverage. They use other people's money, the bank's money, to build assets they couldn't afford to buy with cash. But they also understand risk management. They don't overextend. They have buffers. They run the numbers carefully. That's the mindset shift. Stop seeing all debt as bad. Start seeing it as a tool that requires skill and caution to use effectively. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more content on building wealth and financial literacy. Drop a comment below with your questions or your own experiences with using debt strategically. And remember, the goal isn't to stay in debt forever. The goal is to use debt as a temporary tool to acquire assets that will eventually make you wealthy enough that you don't need debt anymore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.